How much access does big tech have to your email? This is an interesting question, and I wanted to have a look at it in light of an article this week that Gmail is creating a dedicated place to track all of your purchases. Let's have a talk. Welcome back to Switch to Linux, where we like to talk about privacy and business and things like that. And for this week's midweek video, I want to talk a little bit more about how email is traced around the world. And the reality is, email is never a place where you should consider anything to be private at all. And so what we wanted to talk about here is looking at this new article from Google. Gmail is getting a dedicated place to track all of your purchases. Now, I want to have some discussion about this before we actually dive into the content of the article. Obviously, first and foremost, email by nature is not easily encrypted. It is possible to encrypt it. Groups like Tuta have successfully done it. You can use PGP keys and things like this as well. But for the most part, most email just assume that you should have at least a couple of basic email addresses that really nothing on there is super duper sensitive should be on it. And so that is certainly something that we can do. I mean, best practices, if you need to send somebody a password, I've done things like send them a KeyPass.exe file and then call or text or some other means of communication what the password is. That's one way to do it. You can also use the service called One Time Secret, or you can use, I think, Onion Share on the Tor network to share a secret that will expire after a short period of time or after the first time the link is clicked so that people can access things. You can send links like that through the emails because there's multiple other sources of information. Just don't include everything you need in that email. But for the most part, you should assume your emails are not private. But at the same time, how much does our email get caught up to be used against us in either advertising, which is what many people think is the be-all, end-all for whatever weird reason, or just against you in the case that your daily jog every morning runs you by a bank that happens to be robbed 15 minutes after your last morning run, and the police are like, let's do a geofence around this bank. Look at this guy, he must be casing it. He runs by it every day at this time, and then you just don't want to have this giant record open. The downside is that email is also very two-sided. I can do the best steps that I can do to keep my personal emails out of big tech, but if I'm emailing somebody that doesn't care, I got nothing to hide, and so you're using Gmail or Outlook or something like that, well, now at least that those conversations are stored somewhere, at least on somebody's end. And so it produces a giant potential for a surveillance network when it's tied into these big tech companies, especially since people have trained us to leave all of our emails on the IMAP servers for all eternity. And that's another thing that you should probably stop doing. I mean, I keep local copies of my emails. And that way, if there's some issue, everything is localized. Oh, what if I need that on the road? Well, you can actually set your, if you're doing your POP3 accounts, you can set your POP accounts to actually only delete after like 10 days after it's checked, and you'll have a chance to have that on both of your devices or all of your devices. There's options around that kind of stuff. But I wanted to mention this because what caught my eye, I was going to throw this in the weekly news roundup this week, but I did want to talk about it as a separate standalone video because there's a lot that goes into this I thought was interesting. So Gmail gets a dedicated place to track all of your purchases. So what they do is their automated tools go through your inbox. They look for anything that looks like a purchase, an order receipt, or a shipping confirmation. Anything like this, and it will create a new tab for this, just gearing up for the Christmas season. Or, I'm sorry, let me be politically correct, the holiday, it's the Christmas season. Get over it. All right. So as people go out in there and do their shopping and people are progressively buying things online, you buy the stuff and you send it to your Gmail account. Now Gmail will sort it all into your inbox. So that's the holiday, the purchases tab, I think is what they're calling it here. So it categorizes the information based on looking for details pertaining to orders, tracking information, and confirmation. So purchases will be available in the navigation list alongside other stock email labels like promotions, the place to go to, clear the spam folder. Stop promoting to us. We don't have any money anymore. I mean, come on, your AI took all our jobs. I mean, Anyway, purchases will be available in the navigation list alongside the other labels. When selected, it will filter your messages to only show receipts, order status, or shipping details, making it easy to peruse your recent orders. The promotions tab that has existed for years is also getting a makeover as we head into the Christmas season. This tab collects all the emails that Google recognizes as deals, marketing offers, and bulk promos. Can I just grab all that and just auto delete it? That'd be awesome. Now you can't do that. I mean, people need their spam, right? The rest of this is really talking about the promotions. I did love some of the comments here, though, particularly this one from McMunky, I guess. I don't know. He just has this brilliant idea. How about just show me my emails? Here's an idea. Put the newest messages at top. He's kind of talking about going in and, showing you the relevant emails. Relevant according to whom or what? When it's relevant, the last email I got, that's what's relevant. Now, I haven't used Gmail, so I don't know if it's actually sorting by relevant or what at the top there right now. Yes, guys, I've gotten away with it, even as a YouTuber. No, I don't have a Gmail account. It's very possible to run YouTube without one. I mean, come on. We did have to use one for the one company. Of course, that was all a corporate account and things, and it wasn't at gmail.com. It was at their domain name. They just used the Google services years and years ago. That is the extent, and I quickly put that into my Thunderbird as well. So can't say I've ever had to log in there and use the Gmail app on the websites or on a phone or anything. And all that, curiously, I worked for that company before the Android explosion. It was kind of weird. Geez, I'm getting old. The beard is graying. All right. So it says all these changes are focused on how Google wants my email, not about how I want my email. Sort by most relevant. So how does that work? Do I get to make a list of subjects and senders that are most relevant? No. Google decides. I already replied to the wrong email when they changed this for search. I've been using email for over 35 years. Until recently, every email system, every client, every platform I've used defaulted to sorting emails by received date time with the newest on the top. Then one day, Google decides the thing everyone's been doing for the entirety of history for email isn't good enough and makes some arbitrary decision about what is most relevant based on no input from me. So instead of just opening an email client and looking at my email, I have to go investigate. How is this being sorted? How are the messages divided into different folders? What else is the system doing that I have no control over? And this is interesting. Of course, I use Evolution and Thunderbird, and yeah, they allow me to sort the email by, the newest, what's come in. Of course, I can search and change the sorting if I want to, but the default is generally some orientation of what emails have come in first. He then goes into and tells a story in the rest of his comment here about he's, went on a multi-week vacation in a different city and booked all these different hotels, and Google lobbed them all under a single quote unquote conversation because they all had, confirmation number. And so Google just thought they were all the same. He's like, yeah, I didn't find all my confirmation numbers, couldn't find them. So there's a lot of discussion about that, which is an interesting, valid point. But this got me thinking, is Google actually reading your emails? And you'd be surprised to hear the answer is yes. Now, they're not using it to show you ads. Remember that end all be all, the show you ads. When you open Gmail, you'll see ads that were selected to show you the most useful and relevant ads. Well, there's a reason I don't use Google. I don't want to see ads. The most relevant ad is no ad at all. I don't respond to advertising. If you start pushing your ads on me, I stop buying your product. Here's a thought. I know who you are. And if I don't, make sure you have a good SEO optimized website so I can find you when I have a need for a service and I will research that service. And ooh, if you have a good website and you're not scummy, like bombarding me with advertisements I don't want, then I will consider your business. But if I'm searching for the best oil, I'll promise you this, the best oil for my car. If I see Amsoil at the top, nope, immediately out, because those morons stalked me around the internet for a while. That was actually the lesson I learned 15, 20 years ago. Must have been close to 20 years ago now, about to stop using Google because they're tracking you around the internet. But it says when you open Gmail, you will see ads that were selected to show you the most useful and relevant ads. The process of selecting and showing you personal ads in Gmail is fully automated, which means it's all inside their system, which means somebody can gain access to it if they need to. These ads are shown to you based on your online activity while you're signed into Google. So guys, don't browse the internet signed into Google. There's a thought. Or do it when you just want a cloud that's muddle the algorithm with a bunch of white noise or something. We will not scan or read your Gmail messages to show you ads. It's interesting. It doesn't say we will not read or scan your Gmail messages. We will read or scan your Gmail messages. We will not do it to show you ads. All right. And so I wanted to have a look at this one here from TechRound. Can Google read my emails? And this kind of goes into a lot of kind of some of the more technical type of stuff. And it says here, in the years you have had your email, you may or not have wondered if Google can actually read your emails if you have a valid concern. Now, these next two articles is going to get into the idea that I'm seeing that we're trying to push this conversation. They're trying to gaslight our conversations in privacy world away from individual people see it to machines do it. And that is an interesting point that people are not making as they are looking into these things, because obviously I care less if an individual person in like Pakistan or something is reading a message from some random weirdo in a van in the United States. But if it's in an automated system, it is perpetually cataloged, perpetually archivable, perpetually retrievable. All pending somebody wanting to know something about that weirdo in the van. The Pakistani guy, he'll forget. He's a human. He's got 10,000 messages to read today. He's not going to remember mine at the end of the day, but the computer will remember forever. But we're going to start seeing a shift in this language. Individual people. Clearly, Google does not have a warehouse of people scanning and reading all of your emails. Duh. That's nonsensical. But the fact they are storing, collecting, and analyzing the information is enough for me. The point that Google is making is we just don't use that information for the purpose of serving you ads. Maybe. Okay. But what does that have to do with your mailbox there? Since it's basically a profile, it's a goldmine of information, what you what you like and what you don't, and your spending habits. So it doesn't have people reading your emails. You might be picturing a room with thousands of Google employees lined up at computers, scanning every one of your emails like something out of a spy movie. In reality, it's not quite like that. Not reading in the way that we would think, but more looking for specific patterns, and it's not humans that do this. So they're looking for patterns, and it's not humans, but they are still reading those emails. There are some cases where it can be done if there's an ongoing criminal investigation or legal matter, and Google employees are required to check your emails to comply. So yes, some government could come down and say to Google, hey, tell me about this weirdo in the van. Okay. Well, if they go and tell me about this weirdo in the van, Google's like, I don't have an email for this guy. Microsoft's like, I don't have an email for this guy. What are you talking about? Then, they have to go through Swiss police or something else. I don't know. So Gmail is digital, which means it's at risk for cyber threats. Every incoming and outgoing message has to be checked to make sure it's not a phishing attempt or malware. If you receive an email with a suspicious link, Google can either flag it or block it before you open it. This is very frightening because the vastest majority of all spam messages, phishing messages, and an absolute scammy nonsense I get, every one of them is from Outlook, or Gmail or Yahoo or MSN, which is really hilarious because, I cannot even email anybody using Outlook. Microsoft has simply blocked my server because it's not one of the mainstream providers. Simple as that. But I get so much spam from Outlook, it is unfathomable. Clearly, if they're scanning it with the intention of cutting back on phishing or malware, they're doing a piss poor job. Here is the advertising. It does turn out that at one point in time, until just fairly recently, 2017, they were actually scanning your emails to push you ads. Google used to scan your emails to serve you targeted ads based on what you showed interest in, which raised some major security concerns. The company announced in 2017 they would stop doing this. Instead, it would gather data from things like YouTube searches for ad personalization. So basically, that giant profile that follows you around the internet, that's what it is. What contains more information? That or the specific emails? You be the judge of you. So, of course, there's some security. Now, if you're using any form of third-party app integrated directly with Google, any of those third-party apps can read all of your emails. So check your attached account. What do they call it? You can check your third-party apps, what's accessing your account. And if anything is accessing specifically your Gmail account, any of those apps can actually read your emails. So you have to be very careful about any of those. Of course, how do you protect your email privacy? Google has a confidential mode where you can set specific emails to expire after a certain period of time, or the required password to open. If you use your Gmail for work, this feature is ideal to use. I have a better feature, though, that's ideal. You can set your Google up, your Gmail up as like a pop account, or at least simulate it, where when your computer checks it after a certain number of days, it simply deletes everything off of the servers. And then all of the emails that you want to keep around for longer than maybe some 30-day mark, you still have access to them on your own computer, but they are no longer in Google's cloud. There is an option that you can do as well. I did want to look at this one here. This is from the California Learning Resource Network. Mostly it recaps a lot of the information we just saw, but they actually have an interesting chart about the methods and the detail analysis that they actually use for analyzing these things. So they have a lexical analysis, identifying, characterizing words and phrases, and they look at email, body text, and subject lines, looking for tokens, keywords, and their frequency. So analyzing categories of words and phrases. So lexical analysis. Now, a lot of these, by the way, are used to train the various AI tools that they're using now. So they are very possibly using those emails to train their AI. Sentiment analysis, determining the emotional tone of the email. So it's apparently relevant for Google's machine learning to determine the tone of the email by looking at the email, body text, and the subject lines, looking at positive, negative, or neutral tones. Named entity recognition. Identifying and classifying named entities, people, locations, organizations, dates. They scan the email body text. Dependency parsing. Analyzing the grammatical structure of sentences to understand the relationship between words. By the way, this is the type of things to determine if you're posting anonymously on online forums. They'll use an analysis score of this and compare it to known email profiles. Very interesting, which, of course, are all machine learning and archived, so they can grab all these scores and, throw you up in a worldwide people of folks using a naughty forum or, a wrongthink forum or something like that. Topic modeling, identifying the main topics or themes from the email body text. Pattern recognition, analyzing patterns, anomalies in email contact. They look at email text, headers, and sender information. Image and attachment analysis, identifying the content for potential threats within images and attachments. And behavioral analysis, analyzing email sending, receiving patterns to identify suspicious activity like phishing or spam, which clearly they don't do that because nearly everything I get is phishing or spam. And they don't seem to block any of it. And of course, they're looking at email headers, sender recipient information, frequency, and time of day, things like that. And so over here, the data is Google's data retention policy. The default policy for Google is to retain all data until a user deletes it. So that's something to keep in mind. So they have an interesting concluding mark. While Google utilizes automated systems to analyze the content of your emails for various purposes, including spam filtering, malware detection, and feature enhancement, it is a far cry from the notion of individual employees manually reading your messages. The reality is a complex interplay of advanced technology, legal regulations, and privacy policies. And that brings us to that fundamental point that yes, your emails are being read by not just Google. That's the one we picked on from the earlier lesson here, but every one of your mainstreams. Possibly even some of these elements are going on inside of your non-mainstreams as well. So if you do need to, if you do need an external company, to manage your email, because like, okay, I don't want to use Google. What do I use? I use Proton for one of my accounts, particularly where we're working on coordinating some camps and things, and everything in there is related to that one project. And so I'm just, and if I leave that project, I don't need anything into it anymore. So I can just nuke the whole account. It dissociates everything from everything else. So I use the Proton Mail, and I just use the free version. There is an app available for the phone, and I just use the web-based because it's not like we're in there doing a whole ton of things. You can also get the paid version, which comes with a lot of extra things. So we have they have in their whole doc suites, they have email, VPN, password manager, storage, docs. Of course, I'm not a huge fan of putting all my things in one basket, but Proton is a good and a reputable company. The downside right now, they are in Switzerland, and Switzerland is looking at passing a very civ-like privacy law requiring all internet-based companies to collect actual data about people using their actual services. So they have said that if this happens, they're going to leave. The problem is Switzerland currently is the best country for this kind of stuff. Where are they going to? And will they maintain the same privacy possibilities? So these are questions to ask those. I've not used Startmail before, but Startmail is a project of Startpage. They have, I believe it is all paid. I don't believe they have a free tier. You can try it free for 7 days. But Startmail, they are with Startpage is a reputable company. They do have, the downside of them is they do have a partnership with System1, which is a horrible advertising company. I'd actually say it's worse advertising company than Google. Now, I've talked with a lot of the people at Startpage. Those people at System1 do not have access to any data at Startpage. The only people with access to any data at Startpage is a very small number of key vetted engineers, and they have all of their servers. They own all their servers. They're not farming out their servers to third parties. So I would trust Startpage and Startmail, although they do have that weird partnership that I wish they would dissolve because it's problematic. Tuta is probably your easiest way to get like good, full, solid encrypted email. If you need multiple people to be encrypting, Proton also is good encrypted. This is why you can't check your Proton Mail on your, Thunderbird or Evolution Mail client. You have to have that bridge, which does require a paid account, but that's because all email in Proton is encrypted, and I don't believe they have access to the decryption keys, but I don't know for sure. Tuta is another one of these. I tested Tuta once. I did find it a little bit more complicated to use, but it is certainly a good option for people looking at utilizing email with a company that's not a big mainstream big tech company. Those three I mentioned here are good privacy focused emails. Now, the last one I want to talk about here is host your own email. Now, there's a number of ways to do this. You can spin up a Linode, a DigitalOcean, Droplet. You can create your own email systems, and there's a number of those. I have not explored most of those options because for my purposes, cPanel works perfectly. Now, there's cPanel, there's VirtualMin. You can get, again, DigitalOcean or Linode or any other cloud provider and spin these up yourself. or you can just buy them. So of course I have an affiliate for A2 Hosting is the company. They are hosting.com now. They have rebranded to that, but it's tlm.li/A2H. And now their main page, they're really pushing that WordPress hosting stuff. I don't recommend that. You want to get a standard cPanel. So a standard cPanel here, super easy, super cheap. So you start out, you can get it for $2 a month to start out. And one point in time, I believe you could buy up to 3 years at a time on that price. After that, it's going to increase up to the starter one, I think, is $12 a month. The plus is $15 a month. This will allow you to go in there and create, you'll see the starter one allows you to create 10 different email accounts tied to your domain. This one's 10 different email accounts. This one's 20 different email accounts. And the big one here, which is pretty pricey, actually. They only have 40 email accounts. But for the most people, 10 email accounts, maybe 20 email accounts. If you're doing a couple emails per family member, you just buy a domain, tie it to this, and now you have your own custom domain email. There are some people that it may not deliver email to quite right. And I just deal with that. Now, there are actually services that you can connect to your outgoing email server, and that will actually dramatically improve your deliverability of your emails. And I actually have on my list to look at some of those services in the future, particularly as it relates to newsletter availability on your own self-hosted newsletter systems. So there are options for this. This is, of course, what I always recommend. I recommend people use your own emails where you can. It is way less complicated than you think it is. And it allows you to have full control. Everything's on those individual servers. Now, does this mean that you're completely free from any form of stooping and spying? Obviously, the answer to that is no, for the reasons we've already talked about. Anybody you are emailing with back and forth all has access to all this information. Okay. Like if I can do every step I can. If I'm emailing somebody with Gmail, guess what? The Gmail end will still archive everything. They'll archive who it's coming from, things like that. If you are stupid and become, I can't say stupid. If you do happen to become a person of interest, because you're running by a bank that happens to be robbed in the morning or something stupid, if you do happen to get caught up in that, yes, they can still gain access to the stuff. It's a lot harder though, and they may not have all of the deals with the various hosting companies. I know that Google has a very, very, very comfortable relationship with the Department of Justice. I don't know if hosting.com does, which means, yes, they would be forced to comply with anything. But here's the other fun fact. If you set your emails up the way I do, and emails do not linger on your server, there's no info to get. So if you set your stuff up right, okay, you can actually do this. And obviously, I am not in any way advocating to doing something wrong. I am sick of this world that wants to collect and catalog and analyze and store everything on everybody at every time. That is a dystopian nightmare, and I push back against that. So don't do stupid things and break the law. Don't do it at all. But take active steps, because if you think, I got nothing to hide, well, you might down the road when, something like going to church becomes illegal, and you don't want a whole big record of that perpetually on the internet for everyone to know. Now, does that mean we hide that fact? No, we just are cautious about giving all that information to all of the big tech. So there are our thoughts. Let me know your thoughts about this. If you haven't already, subscribed to the channel. If you like this type of content, let's know your thoughts in the comments down below.